I never expected fanfare, not balloons or a marching band. At my age, you know better than to dream big, but I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd get a phone call. Maybe they'd say, "Happy birthday, Mama," or even just a quick text. Something. Anything. Instead, I woke up to silence. My name is Lorraine. I turned 71 this year. I live in a small house in Savannah, Georgia, painted soft yellow with roses I prune every Sunday and a porch swing that creaks like an old friend. I've been a widow for nearly 8 years. My son Michael lives about 20 minutes away. He has a wife, Cheryl, and a daughter of his own now, little Katie, who used to love baking cookies with me on weekends. Used to. That morning, I opened my eyes with a hopeful heart. I even put on my powder blue blouse, the one Michael always said made me look sharp. I set the kettle to boil, took out the last of the lemon tea I save for special days, and sat by the window. The clock struck 9, then 11. Noon passed like smoke. Still no message, no visit. Just silence broken only by the kettle and birds. To pass the time, I picked up my knitting, but the yarn felt heavier than usual. I reached for my purse, thinking maybe I'd go to the little bakery down the street, buy myself a cupcake. If no one else was going to celebrate me, maybe I could at least do that. But when I opened my wallet, something stopped me cold. My debit card was gone. At first, I thought maybe I'd left it in a jacket pocket or on the kitchen counter. I turned the whole house upside down searching. Checked the laundry basket, under the couch cushions, even the freezer, just in case I was losing my mind. Then I opened my banking app. My breath caught. 3 charges in the last 24 hours. $312 at a spa in Midtown. $198 at a boutique called Silken Sage. $149 at a rooftop restaurant I'd only seen in magazines. And the day before that, a shopping spree. 2 more spas, a high-end nail salon, a wine shop. Over $1,200 spent, without me. I stared at the screen, my tea untouched, growing cold beside me. I felt the blood drain from my face, my hands shaking. No password alerts, no fraud messages. Just transactions, clean, approved, and boldly listed, almost like they wanted me to see. And then, just to pour salt in the wound, I opened up social media, trying to distract myself, maybe find a photo of Katie. Instead, I saw something else. Cheryl's post. Spa day with my girl, much needed pampering. Katie stood smiling in a white robe, her toes painted coral pink. Cheryl held a mimosa and pouted at the camera. I was nowhere in the picture, nowhere in the post, not even a mention in the caption. They hadn't forgotten my birthday. They'd remembered my bank card. And they'd celebrated with my money. I didn't cry, not yet. I just closed the app, stood up slowly, and looked out the window. I watched as a neighbor's teenage son brought his grandmother a bouquet of daisies and a slice of lemon pie. She beamed. I could almost hear her laughter through the window. Meanwhile, I sat alone in my sharp blue blouse, holding a phone that didn't ring, a wallet that had been emptied, and a heart that felt foolish for still hoping. That was the moment something in me shifted, not just from hurt, but from quiet hurt to something else, something colder, clearer. I wasn't just forgotten, I was used, and they didn't think I'd notice. They were wrong. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed with the screen of my phone glowing dim beside me, scrolling line by line through every transaction tied to my card. There was no mistake, no random scam, no identity thief from some foreign country. No, this betrayal had a local address, one that shared my blood. The spa charges were minutes away from Michael and Cheryl's neighborhood. The wine shop had a receipt time-stamped within an hour of Katie's school pickup. And the boutique, the boutique, was the same one Cheryl had tagged in her Instagram story weeks ago, gushing about their buttery leather handbags. I had bought them that handbag. I just hadn't known it. It wasn't just the money. It was the silence, the ease with which they did it. Like I was some open wallet gathering dust. Not a person. Not a mother. Not the woman who once pawned her own wedding ring to keep the lights on when Michael was a boy and his father got laid off. And the worst part, I had let this happen. 3 years ago, after my husband passed, I'd added Michael to my account, just in case. He was always better with technology, and I figured if something happened, he could help manage things while I grieved. He had nodded so sincerely, said, "Of course, Mama, I'd never take advantage." Back then, I believed him. But grief fogs the judgment. It makes you hand out keys without asking who's opening doors behind your back. I took a yellow notepad from the drawer and began writing. March, paid for Katie's spring camp. April, sent money when their AC broke. May, babysat 2 weekends so Cheryl could rest. June, paid for groceries when Michael's hours were cut. August, bought school supplies, entire list from Target. September, $300 gift for their anniversary, sent from Dad and me. I stared at the list, watching the ink smear under my palm, and it hit me. They remembered me when I was useful, never when I was just me. I used to think love was measured in years, in the meals I cooked, the sacrifices I made, the birthdays I never missed. But love, I realized, is not a transaction. It's not something you swipe from. It's not a balance you deplete. I picked up my phone again. This time, I opened the bank's app and clicked Settings. Right there under my name, Michael W. James, listed as co-owner. I stared at it for a long time. Then I did something that I should have done years ago. I froze the card. One tap. A soft chime. That was it. Silence followed, but it felt different than before. This silence had weight, purpose. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. No more lemon tea, no more sugar, just cold water, honest and clear. Then I sat back down, pulled that notepad toward me, and flipped to a new page. This time, I made a list of everything I needed to reclaim. My financial independence, my dignity, my birthday, my peace. I didn't know what I'd do next. Not exactly. But I knew I wouldn't do what I'd always done. Forgive, excuse, shrink. The next morning, I folded the yellow pages neatly and tucked them inside the drawer beside my checkbook. My hand hovered for a moment, then reached for something I hadn't used in years. A manila folder labeled Legal Personal. Because I wasn't going to just freeze a card. I was going to unfreeze my voice. And they weren't ready for that. The next morning, I didn't expect much. Just maybe something. A belated, "Oops, we forgot." A cheap card from the gas station. A voicemail with too many apologies and not enough truth. But there was nothing. Until noon, when I finally received a message. Not from Michael, not from Katie. From Cheryl. "Hey, sorry, things have been hectic. Happy belated. Hope you had a relaxing day." I stared at it like it had arrived in a foreign language. I reread it, searching for any real emotion. There was none. No warmth, just polished indifference and a glitter emoji. That was my birthday gift. A text sent without thought and too late to matter. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my banking app again, out of instinct, habit, maybe punishment. And there it was, another charge. $86.77 liquor store, posted just 10 minutes after Cheryl's belated message. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because it was pitiful. They weren't just taking advantage of me. They were bold about it, careless, like they were testing how far they could stretch my kindness before it snapped. And I think that was the moment something finally did snap. It wasn't rage. It wasn't some dramatic fury boiling up inside me. It was colder than that. Like ice, slowly forming across a lake in winter. They were done making me invisible. I was done making excuses. I didn't call to confront them. I didn't yell into the phone or demand they come clean. I waited. And when the doorbell rang the next day, Michael on the porch, clearly annoyed and not even hiding it. I was ready. But let me rewind just 1 hour. Before he arrived, I'd gone to my drawer and pulled out something most people wouldn't expect from a harmless old woman. Receipts. Not just bank transactions, but physical receipts I'd found over time. Things Cheryl had left in my car. Small slips from spas, stores, little accidents they never thought I noticed. I had all of it, and I stacked them neatly on the coffee table like I was preparing for a deposition. When I opened the door, Michael stepped in without even greeting me properly. He didn't bring flowers, didn't even ask how I was. "Why's the card not working?" he said, no hesitation. I tilted my head. "Excuse me?" "Cheryl went to get groceries yesterday and it got declined. Katie needed lunch stuff. What's going on?" His voice wasn't angry. It was annoyed, like I was inconveniencing him. I walked over to the table, sat down slowly, and gestured for him to do the same. He didn't sit. "Did you get my text?" I asked softly. "What text?" "My birthday. Yesterday." He blinked. "Yeah. Cheryl told me you were upset, but come on, you should have reminded us. Things have been crazy lately. You know how it is." I picked up the first sheet of paper and slid it toward him. Spa charge, then another, and another. Wine, dinner, boutique, Uber rides, nails. A pair of shoes I knew she wouldn't dare buy on her salary. Michael's face paled just slightly. "Where'd you get these?" "They were bought, using my name, my account. The same account you promised to only help me with, just in case. Remember?" He tried to fumble an explanation, but I raised my hand. "You forgot my birthday, Michael, but you remembered my PIN." He was quiet, silent even. Then he muttered, "We were going to pay it back." I smiled sadly. "You didn't even say thank you when you spent it." Then I stood, walked to the counter, picked up a manila envelope, and returned to hand it to him. "I've removed you from all my accounts, legally, and I've reported the charges. The bank will be in touch." He stared at the envelope like it was poison. "We're family, Mama." "No," I said, my voice low and steady. "Family remembers birthdays. Thieves remember card numbers." I opened the door and waited. He left, not a word. And for the first time in years, I felt light. It took exactly 36 hours before Cheryl showed up. She didn't knock at first. She texted. Then she called. Then she stood on my front porch, arms crossed, and sunglasses still on her face, like she was trying to shield herself from reality. I watched her through the window as she finally rang the bell. 3 sharp presses, like she owned the rhythm. I opened the door just a crack. "Can we talk?" she asked, her lips pursed and voice tight. I didn't answer. I simply stepped back and let her in. She walked in like she had something to prove, like she still believed she had the upper hand. "Look," she started, setting her purse down without asking. "I get it. You're upset. Michael told me you froze the account and removed him. That's extreme, Lorraine." "Is it?" I asked quietly. "Yes," she snapped. "I mean, sure, we used the card, but it wasn't malicious. We've always helped each other. Remember when you had surgery and we brought you soup for 3 days? You said we were like your support system." She actually said that, as if bringing soup 3 years ago justified bleeding me dry. I didn't raise my voice. Instead, I reached into a drawer and handed her a folded sheet of paper. It was the same document I'd given Michael. Proof of the account removal, the fraud report number, and a warning from the bank about legal liability. Cheryl didn't even read the whole thing. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she huffed. "It's not like you're poor. You don't even go anywhere." I stepped back. That sentence, it landed like a slap. "I may not go anywhere," I said, "but I earned every dollar in that account. Me, not you, not Michael, not anyone who thinks my age is an invitation to take." She laughed. "Are you serious? You sit in this house like some lonely queen on a throne of guilt and think you can just cut us off after everything we've done?" Everything you've done, I echoed. She nodded. We're the only family you have. No, I said firmly. You're the only ones who treated me like a bank account with a heartbeat, not family. She tried to keep her composure, but her nostrils flared. Her voice rose. Fine. You want to be alone? You'll get your wish. Don't expect us to come around anymore. Don't expect Katie to visit. You've made your choice. I nodded slowly. And I'll live with it. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door, but paused, turned back, and delivered her final blow. You know what? Maybe this is why your son doesn't call unless he needs something. You act like a martyr and wonder why no one sticks around. I didn't answer her. Not because I couldn't, but because she didn't deserve my words anymore. Instead, I closed the door behind her and locked it. For the first time in years, I locked it not out of fear, but out of peace. She left tire marks on my driveway, as if that would undo anything. I stood by the window, watched her car fade into the August heat. The cicadas buzzed, my wind chimes clinked softly. I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot that had been there for far too long. But I knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because people like Michael and Cheryl, they don't disappear when you say no. They come back. Desperate, entitled, convincing. I had a feeling they weren't done with me, but that was okay, because I wasn't done with them either. The day after Cheryl's exit, I got up early. I wore my Sunday dress, the burgundy one with soft sleeves and tiny white buttons. I combed my hair, put on a little powder, and packed a tote bag with everything I'd need: documents, copies, Idaho, the folder labeled Legal Personal. And then I drove myself to my lawyer's office. I hadn't been there since settling Harold's estate. The receptionist still remembered me. "Miss Lorraine, my goodness, you haven't aged a day." I smiled politely. I had aged, a great deal, but it was kind of her to say. When my attorney, Mr. Harper, sat down with me, I didn't dance around the reason for my visit. "I want Michael removed from everything," I said. "Bank accounts, power of attorney, anything tied to my estate." He nodded slowly. "Are you sure? That's a big move." "I'm not making a move. I'm correcting a mistake." Then I handed him the packet. Printouts, notes, dates, screenshots. He whistled. They were bold. "Bold is a nice word," I said. "I'd choose as Hameless." We spent over an hour updating documents. I revoked any financial access. We added a new clause to my will. Any misuse of funds or breach of trust would result in disinheritance, no exceptions. Everything was notarized, signed, sealed. And then came the harder part. "Do you want to name a new beneficiary?" Mr. Harper asked. I paused. There was one name I'd been thinking about since the night of my birthday. A young woman named Sierra. She was the daughter of my old neighbor, Miss Carolyn. I used to watch Sierra when she was little, and now she was a hard-working single mother trying to make ends meet while studying nursing part-time. Every now and then, she brought me a peach cobbler, fixed my internet, checked in, not because she wanted anything, but because she said, "You remind me of my grandma." I gave Mr. Harper her full name. "I'm not giving her everything," I said. "Just something, a fallback, something that says, 'I saw you. I appreciated you.'" He nodded. When I left the office, I felt no guilt, no hesitation, only clarity. That evening, I got a string of texts from Michael. "Can we talk? Cheryl's upset. I think we all need to cool down. Katie doesn't understand why you're being like this." And finally, "We were just using what we thought was already ours too, that's all. Already ours." Those two words made my blood run cold. They didn't just think my money was accessible. They thought they were entitled to it. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat down and wrote a short note. "Sierra, if you're free Sunday, I'd love to have you and little Ava over for lunch. I've got fresh tomatoes, and I remember you saying Ava loves macaroni pie. Warmly, Miss Lorraine." I hand-delivered it to her door the next morning. When she opened it, her eyes lit up. And in that smile, I saw something I hadn't felt from Michael or Cheryl in years. Genuine warmth, no angle, no strings, no withdrawal slip hidden beneath the surface. Just kindness. 2 days later they came by. Not for money, but with a pie and a handmade card Ava had drawn in crayon. It had balloons and a smiling sun. Inside it read, "Happy birthday, Miss L. Sorry we missed it. I put that card on my mantel next to my wedding photo, because that crayon drawing meant more than any expensive spa day charged behind my back." They remembered me, not for what I gave, but for who I was. And that, I realized, was a kind of wealth no account could hold. Thanksgiving arrived like it always did in Georgia. Cool breeze, golden leaves, and that quiet hum in the air that made you want to believe in family. I hadn't invited anyone that year. No turkey, no place settings for 12, no candles. Just a small baked ham, collard greens, a sweet potato casserole, and a pecan pie cooling on the counter. Enough for 3. Because this year, I wasn't hosting for people who remembered me when they needed a babysitter or a debit card. This year, I invited Sierra and her daughter Ava, the 2 people who remembered my birthday, when no one else did. At exactly 1:12 p.m., as I was setting out the cranberry sauce, the doorbell rang. I expected Ava's little knock. But it wasn't Ava. It was Michael, and Cheryl, and Katie. Dressed up, empty-handed, uninvited. Cheryl was holding her phone like it was a shield. Michael had that practiced half-smile on his face, the one he wore when he wanted something, but didn't want to seem desperate. "Happy Thanksgiving, Mama," Michael said, like nothing had ever happened. "Thought we'd surprise you." I stared at them. At Katie. Awkward, silent, clearly not understanding why her mother was dressed for diplomacy and not for dinner. "I didn't plan on company," I said. "We figured we'd come eat and talk things through," Cheryl said with a rehearsed laugh. "You know, reconnect. You're still part of our family." Behind me, I heard the soft clink of a glass as Sierra came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Ava followed behind, wearing a paper crown she'd made herself. Cheryl's face twisted. "You've got them here?" "She's not even related," Michael said, a whisper that stung more than a shout. I straightened my back. "She's not related by blood, but she brought me a card. She called me by my name. She hugged me without checking if I had something to give her first." Michael looked around the room like he was trying to find footing. "Mama, come on. You're making this weird." I walked over to the fireplace and picked up a white envelope. "I was going to send this to you," I said, handing it to him. "But since you came here uninvited, might as well give it in person." He opened it. Cheryl leaned over and read it too. Their faces fell. The letter was from my lawyer. It confirmed that misuse of my finances had been formally reported, and that if any attempt was made to access my accounts again, they could face legal consequences. And on the last page, it clearly stated that both Michael and Cheryl had been formally disinherited. Cheryl's voice cracked. "You're punishing us for one mistake." I looked at her. Really looked. "No, I'm holding you accountable for years of choices." Michael's eyes filled, not with regret, but panic. "Mama, you can't be serious. I'm not your mama when you only remember me during tax season, or when your rent is late. You remembered my bank card, Michael. But you didn't remember my voice, my birthday, my name." Katie whispered, "Dad, let's go." But he didn't move. He just looked smaller. Cheryl turned to leave first. No fight left, just a cold, bitter silence. Michael followed, slower, glancing back like he expected me to call after him, to beg, to undo it all. But I didn't move. I stood in my kitchen with Sierra beside me and Ava setting the table with plastic forks, and I realized something. You don't lose family when you set boundaries. You lose users. The door clicked shut behind them. Ava tugged my sweater. Can we say grace now, Miss L? I smiled. Yes, baby, let's give thanks. And we did. Not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd finally reclaimed. The weeks after Thanksgiving were quiet, but not lonely. The kind of quiet that feels earned, like silence is finally a choice, not a punishment. No more surprise charges, no more passive-aggressive texts, no late-night guilt from people who only knocked when they needed something. Just mornings with hot tea and peace, evenings with books and laughter from the porch next door, where Sierra and Ava often stopped by to say hello, sometimes with leftovers, sometimes with nothing but a smile. One evening, Sierra helped me hang lights around my porch. Ava insisted we use the pink ones. Because you're a girl, she said. I let her choose. And when we finished, she tugged on my sleeve and asked the question I hadn't expected. Did your family forget you because you're old? The words hit me hard, but I didn't flinch. I knelt down, looked her in the eyes, and said, No, sweetheart. They didn't forget me because I'm old. They forgot me because they stopped seeing me as a person. But that says more about them than it ever will about me. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. A week later, a small envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a crumpled drawing, scribbled flowers, and the words, I'm sorry, written in Katie's shaky handwriting. There was no note from Michael, no message from Cheryl. Just the drawing. I stared at it for a long time, and then I gently folded it and placed it in the same box where I now kept Ava's birthday card. 2 pieces of paper, one born from guilt, the other from love. Only one of them made me smile. I didn't call Katie. I didn't text Michael. Some cycles don't need closure. They just need to end. Christmas came and went. Sierra brought tamales. Ava made a garland out of popcorn and cranberries that nearly destroyed my vacuum. We laughed until we cried. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was surviving the holidays. I was living through them. Not waiting for the phone to ring, not hoping someone remembered me while standing in a checkout line with a candle they grabbed last minute. Just being, just existing, fully. I'd never been rich, not in the way magazines talk about. But I had savings, a little property, a strong mind and a quiet strength, things they tried to use, things they underestimated. And now I had something better. I had boundaries. I had dignity. I had people around me who chose me, not my bank card. And on my 72nd birthday, 3 months later, I woke up to the sound of tiny footsteps running up my porch. A knock. And then a little voice yelling, Happy birthday, Miss L. Ava, holding balloons with Sierra behind her, grinning wide. On the cake they brought was a simple message. You are loved. I didn't cry when they forgot me, but I did cry that day. Soft, quiet tears. The good kind. Because after everything, after being used, ignored, dismissed, I stood there on my porch, wrapped in a paper crown and pink lights, knowing something my son and his wife might never understand. Love doesn't come from what you can give. It comes from who remembers you, when there's nothing left to take. And I would never forget that again.